We talk about late bloomers as if there's a clock running, as if creativity only counts if it hits peak bloom by 30 or 40 at the latest. And if it doesn't, well, tough, you've missed it. The season has closed. That myth has haunted me at times. But whenever I've felt behind, I've realized I've already bloomed before. It wasn't just at some media-friendly deadline, but in cycles. Bursts of growth that looked nothing like what I thought they would. Some came early, some came later, but each left roots I still stand on. Roots that grew deeper every time. The myth of the late bloomer makes it sound like growth happens once, on schedule, and there you are. You're done growing, fully formed. You've arrived. My life has never felt like that. It's been more like hacking through a forest. Bursts of progress followed by long standstills. Moments where the brush grew too thick and I had to stop. And each time I thought I'd finally cleared a path, I ran into another wall of thorns. By the time I started anxiety medication a couple of years ago, it wasn't my first crash. It was my fourth, and each time I'd gone into the next project with the same determination. Carving my own path, machete in hand, convinced that if I hacked long enough I'd break through. I'd make tons of progress, sure, but eventually, each time, I burned out. And that was the pattern. Hack away until the blade went blunt. Rest just long enough to sharpen it on a stone in the undergrowth. Then push again in a slightly different direction, convinced this was the way to the distant chinks of light through tangled trees. My instinct was always to avoid a trail already cut. I wanted to make something of my own, and that meant stepping into thorny brush where no path existed. And it worked for a while. Those early years in Los Angeles, I felt I was exactly where I needed to be. Writing every day in a workspace full of other writers, picking up editing jobs to pay the bills, certain the scripts I was working on would land me my dream job. I graduated UCLA's professional screenwriting program and hired a coach to get me closer to the all-important manager who would deliver me the screenwriting career I'd been chasing on a silver platter. But when years of machete work only led me to denser forest, the doubt and anxiety returned. And eventually I'd crash, and crash, and crash again. 2 years ago was the biggest crash of all. A promising relationship had ended, the house I was building was draining all my money and energy, and my writing work still wasn't breaking through in the way that I had wanted. I realized I was hacking in too many directions at once. The blade was dull, my arm gave out, and I dropped it. After weeks of exhaustion and confusion, I let someone else hand me a stone. My sister recognized the signs and suggested it was time for medication. I never thought I'd say yes because when I quit drinking a decade before, I swore I'd never use anything again that altered my mental state. Thankfully, I knew I was too worn down to refuse help, and even if that meant contradicting a younger version of myself. It wasn't a miracle drug. It didn't clear a path through the woods, but it gave me just enough strength to start cutting again. What I wanted was to write personal essays and to have them read in large publications. An essay about the end of an engagement on the day I found myself on Mount Wilson on my birthday instead of at a birthday dinner with my former fiancée. I sent it to an editor at the LA Times, followed up a week later when I didn't hear back, and, well, he loved it. Within weeks it was published in the Sunday edition. And only a few weeks after that, another essay of mine about anxiety and my decision to start medication ran in the opinion section of the LA Times after an intense week of edits, and it was the fastest I'd ever seen the forest part. After years of screenplays that might never be read, after long stretches of unfulfilling client work, suddenly my words were in national print. It felt like stepping into a wide, unexpected clearing, where sunlight broke through and the flowers opened. But that clearing didn't stay open for long. I sent out several more essays in the next few months, but none were accepted. The brush grew back quickly, the path that had opened was swallowed, and I was back in the thorns. This is what makes the idea of making it so slippery. When we think of people who've made it, we might think of David Lynch, Emmylou Harris, Edward Hopper, legends all. From the outside, their success looks absolute, but do you think even they ever felt finished? Like they had actually arrived? Or did they wake up the day after a triumph with the same hunger and the same doubts as before? I felt versions of it in my own smaller ways. Editing my first Roger Corman movie, winning an international short story competition, 3 Irish Film and Television Academy Awards, my film broadcast on Irish television, a writing residency at the Ernest Hemingway House, and those 2 LA Times essays. Each time I thought maybe this is it. Maybe I've arrived. But the feeling never lasted, and in some cases it stopped me cold. After the short story win, I froze. People told me I should capitalize on it, but I didn't write another story for months. I was afraid it wouldn't be as good as the prize winner. After locking picture on the Corman movie, I celebrated and felt like I was on top of the world. And then a whole lot of nothing. There wasn't a flood of new job offers. The great news faded almost overnight, and that's the trap. If you ever convince yourself you've made it, you get lazy, you stop working, and the world moves on without you. The arrivals fade. What survives is the work itself, the unseen drafts, the unfinished scripts, the jobs that didn't get noticed. They're the roots under the soil, the slow growth happening beneath the forest floor. They're what sharpened the blade for the next swing, what allowed the visible blooms to break the surface at all. So maybe the myth of the late bloomer and the myth of making it are really the same illusion. That there's one moment that defines you. The truth is harder, but better. We don't bloom once, we bloom in cycles, again and again. Some blossoms flare quickly, others take years. Some fall unnoticed, others shine for a season. And with each cycle, the roots dig deeper, the trunk thickens, the branches reach higher. The plant survives storms it once couldn't. It learns its environment, adapts, endures. Every season of blossom, every season of bare branches feeds the same growth. Not towards a single arrival, but towards a stronger, more resilient life. There is no single flowering, no final arrival. There's only the next swing of the machete, the next project, and the next clearing. And if you keep cutting, the forest keeps opening. If arrival is an illusion, then the question is, what's the next swing of your machete? Where's the work pulling you now? I'd love to hear in the comments.